Welcome to Paradigm Playbook, the podcast on the business of sports. With 50 plus years of experience, Steve Cook shares insights weekly, featuring top playmakers shaping the industry. Get ready to script your next play. Now, here's your host.
Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook. I'm your host, Steve Cook, and I'm alongside Casey Del Prete. Casey's the owner and visionary behind Safari Swim School, Swim Academy.
Swim School, yeah.
Okay, so I'll get it right. So I got intrigued by Casey listening to a webinar that he was doing on hiring. And I think based on the feedback I get from a lot of listeners, there's several metrics that we don't pay enough attention to. And they are the cost of acquisition. What's it cost to bring somebody on board? Two, what's the cost of churn? Like how fast? So maybe we're not doing enough on the retaining side. And then we always talk about lifetime customer value, but you can also talk about lifetime employee value. Maybe it makes a little sense to put a little bit more into the hiring, onboarding to extend the employee lifetime value. And then Casey also has some unique perspectives on employees that overstay their welcome. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. Anyway, Casey, will you take 2 minutes and give everybody a snapshot of where you came from?
Yeah, awesome, Steve. Thanks so much for giving me this opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about hiring, onboarding, our whole philosophy with HR. So I was a swimmer. I grew up in Florida, as everyone is a swimmer in Florida. I swam competitively when I was little, was pretty competitive with it, then got burnt out. Fast forward to high school. I was kind of a lazy high school kid. I had some talent, wanted to do something with my friends. So I'm like, all right, I'll swim a little bit, but not to a level to do it collegiately or anything like that. Brings me to Jacksonville, Florida, to go to school at the University of North Florida. I had a part-time job. It was at an indoor rock climbing place. We did birthday parties for kids. Going to work one Saturday morning, there's a sign on the door that's we're closed. No notice, no nothing from ownership. Got to support myself as a college kid. I got to get a job. What did we do back in 2011? We jump on Craigslist of all places and start looking through stuff, looking through jobs. I'm like, okay, I used to swim. I like kids, swimming, swim instruction. That sounds good. What's this swimming safari thing? Okay, great. Let me apply. So applied to swimming safari back in 2011 and was fortunate to join Joni Maskell in her operation. At that time, we had one indoor rented space. Very quickly after I started, we actually lost the lease on that. They turned it into a big national chain sandwich shop. So we pivoted to outdoor locations. I helped with that process of moving. We had about 400 students moving into a bunch of satellite locations and everything, and was an instructor for a long time, did the office and everything, and then graduated with a business degree in 2012. It was coming up on graduation and had the chance to go to a U.S. Swim School Association conference in Houston. And I still remember it. I still remember walking into the room, and I still remember feeling like, man, this is an awesome industry. Like, I love the people in this industry. I love their approach and how they think about staff and kids and customer experience. Like, this is something I want to be a part of. And around that time, Swimming Safari was trying to decide, are we going for it? Are we building an indoor place? First of its kind in Jacksonville. It took a lot of convincing with banks and all of that. But in 2014, we opened our indoor facility and stayed on as general manager of that. And then fortunately had the opportunity to become a partner in the business as well. I've been here, 14 years. Feels like yesterday in some aspects. I've got a lot more gray hair now, but that's all good. And then in 2014, started consulting with Third Level and Swim Consultant. Kind of knew it from the customer side of things, but now so happy to be involved and really look at this as an opportunity to give back and mentor others as others have done for us.
It's wonderful. And I think everybody knows that I'm a big believer in that you can do well by doing good. And a lot of us start with that passion for, okay, I like swimming, I like kids. Me, it was I like gymnastics, I like kids. But our role at Third Level is saying, that's great. You can do more good for more kids if you make more money. It's not that I'm greedy. It's that the more I get, the more I can give. And so we work hard on developing the way that you run the business. I think the hiring phase of it is, I think you make it more inclusive, which gives you a better end result and you do a better job of selecting the right people. I want to dig into this just for a minute because I'm intrigued by it. And everybody listening has the same issues. Everybody says, I need more instructors, whether it's gym, swim, yoga, cheer, whatever. Everybody needs more instructors. In your case, where do you start? Where do you look?
Yeah, so I love what you talked about with like growing students. And we look at it as our job to grow our staff too. And we want to grow the kids that come and swim with us, but we also want to have staff who are really invested in growing and help shape their lives. A lot of them, it's their first or second job. And what tools and resources can we give them? How can we give them a path to grow within our organization, but ultimately grow and maybe leave our organization? And we're okay with that. I think for us, hiring really starts with just trying to cast a super wide net. We're always looking to bring great people on to the organization. We try to have constant interviewing. Our staff's around 50 to 55, but we are always trying to interview and bring people in. And really, we're interviewing for personality. We feel like we can train the skill. So for us, I think it all starts with making our job post really attractive and making it really easy to apply and giving them a little bit of a story behind Swimming Safari. I always love, when you're driving by, maybe you've experienced this, you're driving by, and this is back maybe when in 2020 and 2021 when there's really a staffing shortage, but you drive by the fast food restaurant and they say, hiring overnight worker will pay bonus. Interview Wednesday between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Well, what person who works overnight is going to be up at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. But you're willing to offer them a hiring bonus? You're really aggressive in needing someone. Why not open that availability? So our philosophy, just as we kind of try to game the customer experience, we try to game the applicant experience too, to make it a really easy application process, give them a lot of the information ahead of time, publishing our pay ranges, making texting available to them, having the ability to book an interview with the calendar link, doing a video interview versus in person. What points of friction can I remove for that applicant so that way I can generate more applicants and better quality applicants, and then hopefully select better candidates from there.
In the webinar, there was a 3-part series that was put together by swim consultants that Casey spoke at. And I love the idea of starting out the interview process. I think you compared it to dating, and you don't call up someone and say, hey, I'm thinking of getting married. You go into it slowly. So do you want to take us through that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. We really try to think about the different segments of the employee journey. It really starts with that first date, and think about first date up through hire. And then we talk about getting engaged, and that's kind of orientation through maybe the first 90 days or so, maybe even into 6 months. And then we talk about happily ever after from there. And so in that first getting to know you stage, that first date stage, I think it's so important to give the applicant the ability to realize it's not the right fit. And we want to encourage them to think about, when you go into an interview, typically the dynamic is the interviewer and the interviewee sitting quite literally can be across from each other, but it's them versus you in a sense. Like everyone who's applying wants to get offered the job, and everyone who's interviewing wants to screen out the bad candidates. But what we try to frame our interviewing in the sense of is it's me and the interviewee sitting on the same side of the table. And what we're trying to interview against is the unknown of the job and what it's going to take to be successful in that. So when I start an interview, I always encourage them to say, I want you to ask a lot of questions. I want you to get to know us as an organization. At any point, if you realize we're not the right fit, that is absolutely okay. I want you to be really selfish in your search for a job and prioritize what is the best thing for you, and give them permission to dig a little deeper and think about it and ask. And then when we do our interview questions, we're really trying to get to that personality trait of that person. And we have kind of a template that we're looking for the job. So for our swim instructors, we know that they have to be a little comfortable being uncomfortable and willing to think about things on their own and figure it out. We know that they have to have an immense passion for what we do. We have to know that they're willing to be a little bit silly. They have to be willing to not be great at something on day one and apply themselves a long time. So all of my questions are really kind of pointed around that and trying to dig a little deeper and find out intrinsically what is in their personality and does that fit with the position that they're going to be joining the organization in.
We talk a lot about marketing on this podcast, and one of the concepts in bringing on new customers, I think, kind of overlaps with bringing on new employees. So the dating part, the beginning part is the get to know you. The second part before you join is getting to like you on both sides. So it's getting to know you, getting to like you, then joining you. And then the last step is identifying as I'm part of this. So if you can go through that whole journey with an employee. And then, so I particularly like Casey's story about finding an ad and working through help wanted to owner to consulting with people that are trying to duplicate what Casey did. So I don't know what the next stage is, but it all goes through that process. You had to get to know it. You had to get to like it. Then you had to get to join it and then identify. So it becomes part of your identity. We have the same problems in hiring in the gym world or any athletic world, whether it's a soccer coach. So how much of the applicant background needs to be around swimming?
For us, none. I mean, they have to have a passion, as I talked about, for what we do. I think that's critically important. And that can be helping kids, that can be being in the pool, being in the water, teaching. It doesn't have to be like I was a collegiate swimmer and I have this huge knowledge of swimming, but you have to be passionate for what we do. And typically we find it's kids and helping others. And that's the thing that gets them through the tough days. And that's the thing that provides the motivation. When they have that success and that child does learn and takes that step, that's what energizes them and makes them be a really great long-term employee. But in terms of swimming ability, no, I don't think that we look for that at all. And really our goal in our whole training process and continued education and all of that is how do we take that C applicant and turn them into an A employee? Because what I find is most often the A employees are not available in the job pool. I mean, yes, maybe they're relocating and they have to find a new job in a new area. But if you have an A employee and you even think about in your organization, you're doing everything you possibly can to keep that A employee happy. So typically they're not the ones that are out in the marketplace. There are not as many of them. But what we want to try to do and what gives the organization a lot of power is if I can take someone that's open, willing to learn, but maybe doesn't have all the skills and is that C applicant, and I can grow them. I can teach them some leadership skills. I can teach them about our culture and teach them how to be a better teacher. Then we have a really great A employee, someone that's grown with us, that we've helped them, someone that we can keep involved. So do a lot of continued education, building a lot of connection with our staff. We put a lot of emphasis on our experienced staff to help the new staff.
Yeah, so I see it in all athletic businesses. It used to be, I'm going to find someone who knows gymnastics or knows karate. And I think every organization needs to have a little bit more of a build your own mindset that we're going to bring them in. And even if they have experience at a different swim school, you want them to fit in with the culture you have. And so a number of times, Casey, you've mentioned this willingness to be silly. And I feel like, especially when you're dealing with young children, a little self-deprecating humor and things that you can do endears you. I always started out, I've coached a lot of baseball, softball, and I start on the first day, giving nicknames. For whatever reason, I remember nicknames better than I remember real names. As soon as they have a nickname that only their teacher calls them by, you have developed a special bond that makes you endearing. And there's a number of kids that come back to me. I do baseball for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, which I know is weird, but it works. The first thing the parents come back to and says, Johnny says you call him Clubber. Why is that? But all of a sudden the kids are excited to go to class because their teacher's there. So sometimes it's not the stroke, it's the splash. And I'm not saying that just in the swimming. I'm saying in every sport, it's not the details, it's the experience. And if you can get their mind right, then learning becomes much easier.
That is so true. And I think that is the hardest part to teach too. It's just how do you have natural, fun, playful interaction with a kid? And like I've always had this concept. So we do a water interview. After the video interview, we bring them in and bounce them around to different teachers and actually get them in the water. They don't teach on their own, but they're with someone in the pool. And we encourage them to get hands-on. And there's a whole rubric and we send it to the applicant ahead of time. We tell them, this is an open book test. We want you to know what we're looking for. And then everyone that we're with, that they are with, gives us feedback and they score them and say whether they would encourage to bring them onto the organization or not. I think that does two things. One, it gives me great feedback for our trainer when we hire them to say this is the areas where they're strong and where they're weak and tailor their training. But the other thing is if someone raises their hand and says, hey, this person's going to be good, then they're way more vested when they show up in their class for training. Like, okay, I did say that Sarah's going to be good. I better make sure that Sarah's actually good because my reputation's a little on the line there. But back to that water interview, one of the things that we look at is what's the willingness to get splashed and get wet and just go underwater and get their hair wet and just interact positively with the child. Like one of the big things that we look for. And I've never done it. My son's 2.5, so maybe he's going to be my guinea pig. But I always had this idea. It'd be so fun to just like tell him, okay, great. Here's this 2.5-year-old. Go hang out with him for 30 minutes. You don't have to teach him anything. Just play with him and entertain him. Here's all these toys. You guys figure out a game and just see how they naturally interact. And if they can have a great time with that and look like they're enjoying it with that 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old for 30 minutes. Like that's someone that you probably want to have in your organization.
And one of the things that I try to convince everybody is that sales and marketing is the responsibility of every employee. And the best marketing you have is making a kid giggle because they're going to go tell their friends. When I went to my swim lesson, and just think how fast it becomes their swim lesson, their swim school. It's theirs, and they're possessive of it. And it creates a curiosity in the others. Also, it's like mom will talk more about that lesson because Johnny comes home, he can't stop talking about it. And it's maybe he doesn't come home from piano lesson the same way as he does from swim. We want them to develop piano skills as well. But in this instance, we're selfishly looking at how can we be number one in their book. I told you this time goes fast, so I'm going to just jump ahead. What are the things that you find are best for retaining employees? I mean, I know we got to pay people and we got to give them hours. So let's skip over that. What else makes people want to stay working in your swim academy?
Yeah, I think connection is huge. I heard a stat, I don't remember where it came from, but you're 70% more likely to stay at a job if you have a friend at a job. So really having some connection. And when I interview people a lot, that's what they talk a lot about. The culture and the connection with their coworkers is the reason that they stay at an organization or like an organization. So we really do try to facilitate a lot of that within our organization, put a lot of impetus on the experienced staff to be very welcoming with the new staff. Wage, yeah, I think that's important, but even more important than that is having a clear path towards growth. So we have a whole growth and compensation chart. It's all public. They can see what they need to do to get that next raise or advance in the organization. But it's also, I think, about giving people the opportunity if they want to, and we don't force anyone to do it, but to have some diversity in what they do. Staff member has been with us for a little while. It's a good staff member. But we have this concept of what we call project time. And you can think about it as taking like a traditionally held managerial responsibility and giving someone who's not a manager an hour or two a week to do it. An example would be, she's been with us for a while. She's an amazing instructor and works in our office, but she handles all of our supply ordering. So usable supplies, teaching supplies, she's making sure that everything's stocked in the pool. She puts it on a Trello card with an Amazon link and I've purchased it all, but she's counting it and she owns it and she owns that responsibility, and it's some fun hours for her. It gives her an opportunity to grow a little bit. And it also gives me the opportunity to see who can self-manage and who can lead and where are those potential future leaders within our organization. That role and that project time can really grow based on how they perform. I think that's a big element of retaining staff, is give them something new, a little bit of leadership opportunity, and give them an opportunity to maybe do a 5-minute presentation in a staff meeting, or maybe lead a continued education training, but give them the ability to elevate themselves a little bit with their peers. And I think people really respond and resonate to that.
Casey's getting to know me quickly here. And one of my go-tos in my life is books. I wasn't a good student back in high school days, but I've become obsessed with books. And Daniel Pink is one of my go-to authors. I don't know if you know him or not, Casey, but he talks about what employees want. And he puts it in 3 buckets. And his 3 buckets are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And he says if the first thing they want is they want the ability to make some decisions on their own. It's good to give them a curriculum. They become better teachers, better employees if they can improvise a little bit. So autonomy, the ability to control their own self and their own time. I think mastery is they want to get better at it. So your growth plan, I think, feeds into this mastery, how they get better and they can move to this next level, and then they can be a leader, and who knows when they can be a manager. Or sometimes, like, we have shift managers that are kind of overseeing, and they also become the, they fill in for absentee, and because they can react to anything. And then purpose is they need to know. So in swimming, I've listened to Andy Broido, and I grew up the son of a YMCA director, so I understand the passion for swimming. But the purpose behind this is deeper than just a sport. It's everything from life protection to life saving to building a better family, making vacations better because you have more options. So there's a huge purpose. And I think your organization is best when everybody understands that purpose and can kind of tell the story. I encourage everybody that, and you all have a story. And I think your story, Casey, when someone new comes to apply and say, you know what, I answered the same ad. Same ad. You can take this as far as you want, but I think they have to know the story and why you're doing this, and the passion for swimming or gym or cheer or whatever the organization is. I think you have to instill that autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Anyway, I get carried away with stuff, but I like Daniel Pink. Before we run out of time, I remember in the webinar you talked about the lifespan of an employee. And can you dig into that a little bit and what is best? Or
Yeah, kind of our philosophy is that it's our job to continue to grow our staff to a point where either they outgrow us or we grow and we have a new position for them. So we really invest a ton in continued education and development and growing and stuff. But we realize and recognize that at some point, someone is going to get to a point where maybe I don't want to say that they're too expensive for us, but because if they're great, we'll retain them. But, maybe that they are ready for that next step and we're ready for that career move. And we're absolutely comfortable with that. We had someone just recently leave our organization and take a GM job at another swim school. And we're like so excited for him. He was able to make that jump. And we kind of look at that as a little bit of a win for us because we didn't have a need for him to step into a role. Our management team right now is set, but that means that I did a great job of having someone in waiting. So if one of our other managers hit the lottery and is now living in Tahiti, I would have had that staff member be able to step into that role because they've shown that they're able to step into it in another organization. So we really do try to not hold people back. We try to continue to let them grow and then understand that at times that means that they outgrow us, but we're okay with that.
And I think it's important, and we've had this situation at Grand Slam, our facility, where we have coaches that grow and they become really good. Our focus is from 4 to 13-year-old. That's our focus in baseball. We don't deal a lot with college baseball players or high school. We have some, but we have had coaches that developed, they end up getting a high school job and then then they have more advanced players. And we have to be very careful that we let them advance before we try to do something that is not in our overall mission vision of what we're doing. We're not here to get college scholarships for baseball players. I hope that all of our kids do, but we're not putting that last polish on them here. We're mainly getting them to the big field. Maybe it's the same as swimming. I don't know. But you get a swimmer and they love you so much. And now they say, okay, I want you to train me for the Olympics. Well, maybe the pool's not the right size or what. Maybe that's not something you do.
I think keeping it with your core competency is so important within your organization and really kind of just refining what you already do and just keep making that better and better and better. And then being okay with customers and staff having transition. We do want to retain them. And hopefully there's a long lifetime value of both the employee and the student that comes in. But ultimately it gets to a point where it's okay if they outgrow you because then they're going to go out and they're going to continue to succeed and have nothing but amazing, nice things to say. But if we hold them back, we don't let them realize their true potential, then they're not spreading that good word about your organization as much as they could.
And one last question. What about the employee that stagnates or dips? Do you see that at all?
Yeah, we do. I think all the positives great, but you got to have the confidence in having a really good performance improvement plan and having some critical conversations. And anytime that we do that, it's really not me and the employee sitting on opposite sides of the table. It's us sitting together, identifying what the problem is and talking about it. And I've had conversations with staff that says, I feel like you're ready for the next step, next transition outside of our organization. You'll always have a spot here, but I think it's time for you to start thinking about something else. And encouraging them to go look and make that transition on their terms, but encourage them to go look for something else. And I think they've been very appreciative of that and knowing that we're not going to say, okay, in 2 weeks, you don't have a job, go find something else. Having that good staff member that's kind of hit the peak and then is starting to decline and maybe it's reached a burnout point or maybe they are ready for that transition. It's our job to identify that and point it out and encourage them to take that next step.
When you mentioned at the beginning that you take a C applicant and make them into an employee, I see it as a transition from they're willing to they're good to they're leading others. And I think that last step, and it doesn't have to be a promotion or a new role or a new job title. You can tell who are the leaders in the pool or on the deck. And it's a sign that, okay, we better get ready for something else for them or help them find another place because they're growing. The last thing you want to do is have them feel stuck and say, okay, I can't grow here without your support. So I love the fact that you encourage them to move on when it's time and even help them. It's like, you know what? I can give referrals all the time. People call me. I said, but you really want that job? Let me call that employer in advance. Let me call them ahead of your application and get them ready because if I got that call, I'd be very excited about it. So anyway, okay. Like I said, the time goes fast. We've been 30 minutes at this. We're going to jump off. Casey, I'll have you back on. I want the second and third stage of employees. I want to dig into some more of that. We'll do that on another call. But whether it's in your role as a business owner or a consultant or whatever, if someone wants to get in touch with you, is there a website, an email? What's best way for someone to reach out to you?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is Casey at Swimming Safari. So that's my day job, but I moonlight as a consultant for third level and swim consultant. So reach out to me through Casey at Swimming Safari, but we can definitely set up a time to talk in a consulting capacity. And then hopefully we'll see some of you guys at the third level signature event. I'll be speaking there about this topic a little bit more. I look forward to the opportunity to connect over that conference. It's going to be really great. And there's a lot of, I know, amazing people that are going to be speaking.
Everybody's going to hear more about the signature event. It's just being released now, and Casey is one of our premier presenters that has already signed on to be there. But just for everybody knowing, I think we have 22 presenters on different topics, but it's all business. We're not going to be in the pool. We're not going to be splashing or in the gym. We're going to be discussing business. And when you're done, you're as passionate about business as you are about swimming or gymming.
Hopefully I didn't let the secret out too early, Steve.
No, it's good. We love it.
Beautiful.
And reach out to me if anybody wants to know more about it. But Casey, thank you so much for joining Paradigm Playbook, and we will definitely have you back on here in the future.
It was an absolute pleasure. I totally look forward to doing it again. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Paradigm Playbook. Explore more at paradigmplaybook.com. Want to be a playmaker? Contact stephenjcook.com. Share this episode to spread the word about sports industry opportunities. See you next week.